So we're supposed to believe that this random rebel group is suddenly making this crazy amount of progress trying to overthrow Assad in Syria, which, if you don't know about Assad in Syria, it's the same situation as Putin, the same situation as Gaddafi, the same situation as what happened in Lebanon. I guess you could say CIA is trying to overthrow Assad because they don't like how close he is with Russia and with Iran. But this is crazy because just like in Iraq, we overthrew Saddam Hussein, this never goes well. Just like when we overthrew Gaddafi, never goes well. There's always a power vacuum. There's always much more violence than there was before. And it's either they're that stupid, our government, or they're trying to create chaos and destabilize the area. Because I don't know what vision they have in mind for after they do overthrow him, but check this out. It says CIA coup written all over. I mean, first of all, the entire reason that ISIS exists, there's this operation called Operation Timber Sycamore, where they're trying to arm rebel groups in 2012 to overthrow Assad. And then just a few months later, poof, ISIS appears. So with the weapons that we gave to rebel groups in Syria to overthrow Assad, ISIS was born. And what do you know? Just yesterday, Syrian rebel leader says goal is to overthrow Assad regime. The goal of Syrian rebel coalition as it wrests another major city from the government control this week is ultimately to overthrow authoritarian President Bashar al-Assad, according to Abu Muhammad al-Jolani, the militant leader of the main group driving the country's armed opposition. In an exclusive interview with CNN, and CNN's just friends with this guy, left no doubt that the ambitions of Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, HTS, a group that was formed out of a former al-Qaeda affiliate, are nothing less than bringing an end to the Assad regime. In his first sit-down media interview in years at an undisclosed location in Syria, he spoke about plans to create a government based on institutions and a council chosen by the people. Oh, so they're a nice terrorist group. What do they say? One man's terrorist is another man's freedom fighter. When we talk about objectives, the goal of the revolution remains to overthrow this regime. It is our right to use all available means to achieve this goal, said Jelani. The seeds of the regime's defeat have always been within it. The Iranians attempted to revive the regime by buying it time, and later the Russians also tried to prop it up, but the truth remains the regime is dead. So that's precisely why our CIA hates Assad. That's why they freaked out when Tulsi Gabbard went there and met with him. They call him her an Assad apologist. So we just become dead set on overthrowing certain governments across the world. Since bursting out of their pocket of territory in the northwest of the country more than a week ago, the rebels' progress has been stunningly swift, taking control of the country's second largest city, Aleppo, before capturing the strategic city of Hama. The shock offensive delivered a huge blow to Assad and his backers in Iran and Russia, while reigniting a civil war that had largely been dormant for years. Syria's opposition forces are decentralized and made up of different ideologies, albeit united by a common goal of upending the Assad regime, but HTS and Jelani's roots in extremist Islamist movements cast a shadow over his ambitions. So that's the thing, too, to keep in mind, is that Assad's not an Islamic or extremist. This group is. But it feels a whole lot like we're cheering for this group to win, and I would venture to say that we're giving them a whole lot of help because that's just what we do historically. I mean, where'd they get their weapons from? Despite Jelani's effort to distance his new group from al-Qaeda, the United States designated HTS a foreign terrorist organization in 2018 and placed a $10 million bounty on him. Emerging from the shadows, for some people who once operated in the shadows, Jelani exuded confidence and tried to project modernity in his meeting with CNN, which took place in a broad daylight and with little security. Because what's he got to be afraid of? It's CNN, it's a friend to him. As CNN sat down to interview Jelani, news broke that forces under his command had captured the city of Hama. It's funny how this is so different than Ukraine. Inside rebel-controlled territory in Syria. It's clear he operates less like a wanted man and more like a politician. Oh, he's a politician. CNN's calling a fucking terrorist leader a politician. This is so crazy. Jelani says he has gone through episodes of transformation through the years. A person in their 20s will have a different personality than someone in their 30s and 40s, and certainly someone in their 50s. This is human nature. Jelani cut his teeth as a young fighter for al-Qaeda against the U.S. and Iraq. Returning to his homeland during the Civil War, he led the terror group's affiliate in Syria when it was under the name Jihad al-Nusra. He would go on to break ties with al-Qaeda, and his organization evolved into Hayat Tahrir al-Sham. Definitely butchering that. Also known as the Organization for Liberation of the Levant in early 2017. The U.S., Turkey, the United Nations, and several other Western nations continue to designate HTS as a foreign terrorist organization despite the group's attempts to distance itself from its roots. Jelani's interview with CNN on Thursday was an about face from the hardline rhetoric that he used during his first ever televised interview in 2013 when he was interviewed by Al Jazeera with his face in the shadow. At the time, his remarks were focused on furthering al-Qaeda's branch in Syria. On Thursday, Jelani projected a different version for the war-torn country. In signs of his attempted rebranding, he also publicly used his real name for the first time, Ahmed al-Shara, instead of the nom de guerre, by which he is widely known. Rebel coalition reignites Syria civil war. The Syria rebel forces led by Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, a former al-Qaeda affiliate, began an offensive November 27th, seizing territory and taking control of Aleppo, the country's second biggest city. All right, so here's a map as of December 5th. Pro-regime is the white. This terrorist group is the orange. Turkey-backed Syrian National Army, the blue. Syrian Democratic Forces, okay. All right, so it's this little area right here, maybe about, would you say that's 10 or 15% of the land area. As the rebel coalition's military advances expand the territory and population under their control, Jelani insisted that civilians had little to fear in the management of rebel-held areas of Syria. People who fear the Islamic governance either have seen incorrect implementations of it or do not understand it properly, he claimed. Oh, okay. If opposition forces succeed in toppling Assad's regime, it will transform into a state of governance, institutions, and so on, he envisioned. The group said it is working to reassure civilians and groups that suffer persecution at the hands of extremist and jihadist groups in Syria's decade-long civil war. It also said it has gone out of its way to publicly tell Christians and other religious and ethnic minorities that they will live safely under its rule. Oh, how nice. But isn't it a mandate of the Islamic religion to eliminate Christians and people of other religions? Or are they nice Islamic extremist terrorists? There will be some violations against them, minorities, by certain individuals during periods of chaos, but we addressed these issues, Jelani said when asked about the concerns for their safety. Quote, no one has the right to erase another group. These sects have coexisted in the region for hundreds of years. Well, they're nice terrorists, okay. And no one has the right to eliminate them, he said. Human rights groups and local monitors have nevertheless raised alarm about HTS' more recent treatment of political dissidents and Idlib, alleging that the group conducted harsh crackdowns on the protests and tortured and abused dissidents. Jelani told CNN that incidents of abuse in prisons were not done under orders or directions, and HTS had already held those involved accountable. Jelani also pushed back against the enduring terror of designation of HTS, calling the label, quote, primarily political and at the same time inaccurate, arguing that some extreme Islamist practices had created a divide between HTS and jihadist groups, claiming that he was opposed to some of the more brutal tactics used by other jihad groups, which led to his severing ties with them. He also claimed that he was never personally involved in attacks on the civilians. So you get the point. CNN's basically doing a fucking puff piece on a terrorist group because the CIA, the deep state, military industrial complex, they're collectively anti-Assad. They wanted to overthrow Assad for years, but this is the exact same pattern as Saddam Hussein, Gaddafi, what they're trying to do with Putin, even as far back as Iran, what they did with the Shah and the guy before the Shah. I mean, I ask rhetorically, why are we creating these problems around the world? But that's a stupid question. So there's at least a 25% chance that the president of Syria is overthrown and ousted Gaddafi style before Trump gets into office. Because, I mean, Trump said before in the past, why would I want to get rid of Assad? Why wouldn't I want to work with Assad? Why would I want to deal with somebody who's unknown? And like, Syria is not like Iran right now. They will be like Iran if this guy gets in control. Like, remember, and you probably don't remember what Khomeini was saying when he was trying to overthrow the Shah. He was making himself sound all nice and sweet and progressive and like, oh, we're not that extremist. We just don't like what he's doing because he's oppressing us. And then he gets in and it's a fucking genocide. That's what will happen if this guy gets in. There'll be ISIS running an entire country. You remember, Obama funded ISIS, the rebel group, just like this one. That's how ISIS started, by giving weapons to a rebel group to try to overthrow Assad. It's fucking crazy, but that's what we're doing again. Like, it's not a coincidence that we're weeks out from the transition of power. Right before that, we escalate tensions with Russia and Ukraine, and this rebel group pops up with a new and improved weapons, and they're making tons of progress. I mean, there's no way that our CIA is not helping them with this by giving them coordinates and places to hit with the weak spots and everything. Unbelievable. So fucking treasonous. And CNN's just hanging out with this guy, trying to do a puff piece on him. Disgusting. Anyway, if you want to learn about the deep, dark secrets of the deep state, consider joining my book club, the Forbidden Book Society, where we do deep dives every month on the secrets of the universe. We're going to choose a new book for this month, coming up pretty soon in the next few days. The last one was The Rothschild Dynasty by John Coleman. The one before that was The Committee of 300 by John Coleman. This next one's going to either be The Technocratic Era by Zygmunt Brzezinski, The Federal Reserve Conspiracy by Eustace Mullins, or The Wall Street and Hitler Connection by Anthony something. I'm not remembering his name at the moment. By Anthony Sutton. As always, thank you for watching. God bless. Link is below. I will see you later.